Things happen when people have ideas. I have an idea. It's a bad one. Probably not going to work. Things are probably going to catch fire. Kind of hope not, but you never know. Pretty much what we're doing today is putting together a potato. It's one of the crappiest spare part systems I probably could put together, and it's most likely not even going to work because these parts have been kicking around the room for months. We have a Foxconn something or other, can't find the model number of the board anywhere. It's the Foxconn N15235 motherboard, or the G31MXP, whatever one of those you want to look up. Those are the only numbers it's got on here that make any sort of relevant to its maker model. But it's an old motherboard, socket 775. It's got a Pentium E5400, so pre-Core 2 Duo, but past the Pentium D range. Supposedly decent overclockers if you got them on a decent board, which this isn't. And it was kind of funny. I was actually rudely interrupted by my cell phone and a sales call. The previous video. So I had to remake this because some unpleasant things were said to the robot on the phone. So yeah. But anyway, I was saying, I've had this board for 3 months, and I'd been wishing the entire time that it had more than one IDE port, because it didn't like if you had something IDE plugged in as well as like SATA drives plugged in. There's another IDE port right there under my nose the entire frickin' time that I didn't even notice for 3 months. I mean, granted I didn't use the board very much, but that's still pretty depressing on my part. But anyway, what we're doing is we got this Foxconn board, Pentium E5400, a ancient 350 watt power supply, and just to show you how ancient it really is, if I can find the connector on there, it still supports the really old style connection. I forget what it's called, but pre-24 pin for the really ancient motherboards. So that shows you how old that is. I pulled that out of an old AMD Athlon gaming rig. That had a 64 meg MX440 from NVIDIA in there, which is actually down here in the Pentium 3 tower with all the 90s benchmarks on it. But I warn you now, headphone users, this fan, not PWM controlled by the motherboard. It just runs full blast all the time, and it runs at like 5,000 RPM, so it's really loud. But over here we have a mostly, probably 100% dead NVIDIA GT520 1GB PCI Express graphics card, and 2 gigs of DDR2 RAM, of which we're only using 1.5 gigs of because this motherboard only has 2 RAM slots and it only supports a max of 4 gigs of RAM. So yeah, great performance in Windows 7 there. Also, you should not be doing this the way I'm doing this. You should be grounding yourself out. But since I don't care about this hardware, we're just gonna risk ESD and not give a crap because, you know, oops, actually, I need to clean that before I put it in there. It's got some crap on one of the, check this one out. This one looks relatively clean. This is also sitting in like an area where unprotected. All this RAM's just been laying around for months. I don't have it in a bag or anything. So I'm going to set the camera down, clean up that RAM stick, and get back to you. Okay, so we got the RAM sticks cleaned up. They're in there now. I'm debating on whether or not I want to repaste the CPU. I don't think I'm going to bother because the back plate has a piece of paper pretty much keeping it from shorting out on the motherboard, which works quite well actually. If you need a back plate and you have one for a different socket that's not made for the motherboard, if it's a 775 socket like this one is, this heatsink actually went on that motherboard over there, out of a Sony Vaio. It was cooling a 3 GHz Pentium 4 with hyper-threading. So the backplate and heatsink came out of that, which is part of the reason why the fan doesn't PWM control. It's a 3-pin fan that was voltage controlled by that thing's BIOS for the main CPU fan. This thing doesn't, or this motherboard doesn't seem to want to voltage control it at all. Even if you set it to a 3-pin CPU fan, it just runs at full tits all the time. So that's relatively annoying. If it gets too annoying, I have another fan that we can kind of ghetto mod onto there, but I'd rather keep that fan on it. It doesn't get hot though. But I'm going to get some things set up and get back to you. Oh, we're also going to be using IDE and some of these. I have a lot of these Western Digital drives. This one's a 40 gig. I think the other one over there is an 80. This one's an 80 gig, and my camera's not going to focus on it whatsoever, because why would it? I mean, you know, potato. And we also have up here a Samsung SpinPoint 80 gig drive. I had a ton of these things too, at least 3 or 4 of them laying around. As you can tell, they've all been in Dell Optiplexes. This thing, I was using this as a media server kind of down there. But let me get some other things set up, get that power supply set up, and I'll get back to you. So I actually did decide to repaste the CPU. I'm kind of glad. I mean, the thermal paste wasn't atrocious, but it wasn't great either. So we're gonna go ahead and reapply some Arctic Aluminum premium ceramic thermal compound. I'm gonna get this cleaned off. We might even pull out the CPU, take a look at it, and see if my camera can actually pick up and pick up on the model of it, make sure it's a Pentium E5400. I'm fairly certain it is, but we'll take a look anyway. So 1 second, guys. Alright, so we got the thermal compound cleaned off. And the one thing I wanted to take note of is this thing was on a 3 GHz hyper-threaded Pentium 4 from the day it was made up until 2016 now, I'd say 3 years ago, with the original thermal paste, which really there wasn't any. And the thing got so hot that it actually, I almost want to say, burned an outline of the CPU into this copper base. Literally, you cannot get this off. I scrubbed it for 15 minutes with rubbing alcohol, and it wouldn't come off. It blackened a paper towel, and it still got the outline on there. So that's as clean as it's gonna get. But the CPU, however, I was mistaken. This is a Pentium dual-core E5200, not a 5400. Let me see. Crappy light situation, and it's not gonna focus on it at all. But it is a 2006 Pentium dual-core E5200 that was made in Costa Rica. It's rated at 2.5 gigahertz, 800 megahertz front side bus, and 2 megs of cache, I do believe, if I'm reading that correctly anyway. But yeah, so 2.5 gigahertz Pentium E5200, and if I remember right, I actually have this overclocked to 3 gigahertz through frontside bus overclocking. So but that depends on if I've reset the CMOS in the past like 4 months, which I probably have. The CMOS battery's probably dead. But yeah, so Pentium E5200, still a good overclocker if it's on a good board. This is not a good board. Hell, this is the days before It looks like actual VRM power phases. It's just kind of, yeah. So it's a good thing it's not a very high power chip, because it would probably just burn out the VRMs on this motherboard pretty easy. But we'll get some thermal compound back on this thing, which I might as well just do on camera, actually. Come on, come off, or not. You know, you could do that too. You could just be a pain in my ass. God damn it. Video is not for children under the age of whoever gives a crap about what their children watch nowadays. But just want a little dot right in the center of the CPU. No more than that should suffice, because it'll spread out when you reapply the heatsink. Put the cap back on this. I've had this tube of Arctic Silver thermal paste for months, almost a full year actually. It was I forget how many, I think 12 or 13 gram tube of thermal compound. Got it for like $7. I'll flip this thing back over, point you at my crotch, because that's what everybody wants to see, you know, YouTube porn, of course. And set this thing back down, right on its holes there. That's what she said. And screw it down evenly. You just want to do kind of like an X pattern, and try to do the same number of turns on every screw. And I can't even see this one. Oh, shit. Make things difficult when I can just turn the... Uh-oh. Son of a bitch. God damn it. Of course I did. Fuck it. Oh well, it runs at full speed anyway. I have to change the position of the CPU fan, because I was a moron. And put the cooler on in a fashion where it won't reach the CPU fan connector anymore. Because yay me, thinking before you do things usually helps. I don't tend to do that too often. Christ almighty, these are some long ass screws. We almost there? We there yet? You done yet? No? Of course not. Why would you be done yet? Well, that one's tight. Once again, if you actually care about the components you're working with, don't do as I'm doing right now. You actually want to be remotely careful with the hardware. This stuff was free, so if it dies, it's not a huge deal. This is just something to play around with videos like this. Okay, CPU cooler is tightened down. I need to loosen up the screws for the actual CPU fan and turn it a bit, because I screwed up like an idiot. No! Aha, saved it and stabbed the camera with a screwdriver. Way to go me. Just always breaking things. One more screw. Okay. Should be able to pull this up and give it a rotation. Alright. It's like that now. Crap. Screw you, magnetic screwdriver, you pain in the ass. I actually have no idea what you're looking at right now, so sorry about that. but I can't fix it at the moment in time. Kinda looking at something. Kinda, sorta. Not really. That's the second one screwed in. I think. Kinda. No, it's not. Screw it. Get the hell in there, you bastard. That's what she said. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Okay, and that one's in there. One more should suffice. I don't have the proper screws that go to this fan. You may have noticed. So it's all wonky-tonky, jerry-rigged kind of crap that everybody loves. Oops. One last screw that is not for this and way too large. But hey, whoever said things are supposed to be done properly, I mean, that's just no fun. And screw's not even doing anything. Oh well, we'll leave it there because, yeah, I'm too lazy to remove it. So now that I can actually reach the CPU fan header, we'll plug that into there like so. Lighting in here totally blows. I'm gonna go open up the blinds. I'll be right back. Okay, so we have some form of illumination now, so that's nice. So I'm gonna put down the camera real quick and we'll get this thing set up on a box. I guess this will work. It's a little large though. Kinda hoping for something smaller. Do I have anything smaller? I just need to lift it. This box is like the epitome of flimsy. I've had it for years. That'll work, I guess, maybe. Find out. Perfect. Okay, so the motherboard is up on a box now. Let's go install this GPU that I know is so dead. This was in an old HP DV5700. It was a small form factor HP tower. I don't remember the model number of it. But this was one of the best video cards that it could take with a 240 watt power supply at the time. And it's a 1 gigabyte NVIDIA GT 520, and it actually held up relatively well. It was a good card for like 30 bucks, but I don't even think it works anymore. So that's installed. Fan's not seized up. Power supply. So, the absolutely gargantuanly ancient Sparkle Power Incorporated 350 watt car alarm. Probably somebody being murdered or car stolen. You never know around here. But get this thing hooked up and I will be right back. Alright, so we have everything connected. We have hard drive, video card, speakers, keyboard and mouse, and Ethernet. So everything is hardlined, everything's plugged in. All I gotta do is plug in the power supply and watch it explode, because that's what's probably gonna frickin' happen, because that's my luck. Also, somebody's probably already started watching the video, noticed I'm a moron, and commented. This is not another IDE port. I didn't even look at the sizes properly until I got up close to it and went to plug in the IDE drive and realized that's a floppy cable port for a floppy drive. So it does in fact only have one IDE port, and that is incredibly depressing because I don't have many IDE or SATA drives left. But anyway, let's go ahead and plug in the power and see if anything goes boom. So, as UXW Bill would say, it is time to get a power supply, power cord that actually reaches the damn thing. But smoke test. Yay! No explosion. Oh my god, that is terrifying though. I was waiting for one. And I think that's on. I'm not for certain though, but let's get a screwdriver. Now, headphone users, like I said before, you're going to want to turn down your speakers because this thing is going to be loud. So, if I can find the right pinout, I do believe it's this one. I think. Or it's this one. Or it's this one. Or the power supply is off. Something about an open power supply. Well, having it exposed like that and being up close to it, flipping the master switch, is kind of terrifying. Can't really explain it. Alright. So, we have power. See if we have a post. Doesn't seem like it. Let me unplug my other monitor real quick. But I have a feeling that motherboard's not going to post. I can feel the air coming off this thing from here. That's kind of insane. But be right back. Okay, so as it turns out, this thing is dead. Entirely. Can't get it to post at all. It just completely ignores the graphics card and posts through the onboard. So the GT510 is dead. But the system does in fact post, and I have a slight overclock applied already, so we'll go ahead and boot it up here. As you can see, it's a Pentium dual core. It says the model somewhere. Yep. Dual core CPU, Pentium E5200 at 2.5 gigahertz. It's currently at 2.75 gigahertz right now, just with the preset stepping in the BIOS that I can apply. It's got 3 different ones. So it takes this a while to actually pass and then go into the BIOS. So I have to wait for that. That's one incredibly loud CPU fan. When it was on the Pentium 4, it pretty much always sounded like that. Because it was on one of the hottest Pentium 4s made with little thermal paste. So you can imagine. Alright, BIOS. System information. Pentium dual core E5200, 2.5 gigahertz, but really 2.75 gigahertz. We have 1.5 gigs of RAM. The motherboard model is a Foxconn G31 MXP. We have a Western Digital 80 gig hard drive. It surprisingly kept the time and date. Here you can have the smart BIOS with the power LED and smart boot menu. So you can see current CPU speed, 2750 megahertz with 880 megahertz frontside bus. That's the only way this overclocks, is it bumps the frontside bus up. But you can go here and change the intelligence stepping from 3 to 2 to 1 to default's 200, 210, 215, 220. Or you can go manual and punch it in yourself. I've had it up to 3.1-ish gigahertz, but we'll keep it at 3. Voltage options, everything is on default. PC health status. Yeah, CPU fans running at 4,500 RPM. CPU V-core is 1.26 volts. All of this is completely pointless, so we'll just disable that. The CPU, or system temperature, is 27 degrees Celsius. So, great temps there. System fan speed, PWM control, don't have a system fan, so don't need that. This is not what I'm looking for. You could set movable device priority, don't have a floppy disk. And I want the Kingston drive to boot first. I plugged in my 16 gig flash drive to boot a copy of Windows 7 on. I think it's got a copy of Windows 7 on it. Full screen boot logo, don't need it. Advanced chipset features. It's got, I can enable up to 256 megs of onboard video using the dynamic video memory technology that it's got. I could just set it as a fixed 256 meg, but I'll let it use it's dynamic, so it's easier on the system memory. Integrated peripherals. You can, this actually has a lot of features for a really cheap board. Where was it at? It was under somewhere, but I forget where. But it's got like Wake on LAN and no RAID or anything like that. But HPT support, 64-bit mode, power on by mouse, keyboard, Wake on LAN, Wake by PCI card. It's a decent BIOS for what it is. But we'll go ahead and save and exit this and see what it boots. I don't know what's on that flash drive. I think it might actually be Windows 10, so that'll be interesting. Theoretically, you could run Windows 10. It's got the right instruction sets on the CPU. It supports it. But Windows 10 and 1.5 gigs of RAM and an old ass, I think, 945 chipset video on the motherboard. I'm not sure what Intel used to use back then. Just have to wait and see. It's either going to be a copy of Windows 7 64-bit or a copy of Windows 10. I think that flash drive has a copy of Windows 10, but I'm not sure. That is for sure Windows 10. So apparently we're installing Windows 10 on this potato. So I'll get back to you guys once the setup actually starts doing things. So just a minute. Well, it's actually installing Windows 10. It's not going to be activated because I don't have a Windows 10 key. So, but the good thing about Windows 10 is I found this out a little while ago. If you install it, but you don't activate it, it won't lock you out of Windows. The only thing you can't do is customize your lock screen, and one other thing I don't remember. It won't degrade the performance of Windows. You'll just get a watermark that says activate Windows, and after the first year, you don't get Windows updates anymore. So you could run a completely unactivated version of Windows 10 forever, if you don't mind not getting Windows updates and just running a third-party antivirus. I mean, awesome, Microsoft. Because Windows XP, Windows Vista, and Windows 7, after a 30-day grace period, they lock your ass out. You don't get into your account anymore. So I kind of like that idea. Technically, you really don't need to buy a Windows 10 key. You could just go download the ISO from Microsoft and install it and run it that way. I have a friend that's been running an unactivated copy of Windows 10 for like 4 months without issues. So yeah, good to know. But yeah, it is installing Windows. It's probably going to take it a while. It's installing off of a USB 3 flash drive, but I think the ports that it's plugged into are USB 2.0 or 1.1. So I'll get back to you guys when it's getting somewhere farther than that. So, talk to you in a bit. Alright, so we're getting places, and I managed to quiet this down a bit. Seeing as how this is a 3-pin fan, I forgot that I had some voltage step-down adapters that came with my 240mm Corsair fans. So I just installed a step-down adapter on the CPU fan, and now it's relatively tolerably quiet, so we don't have to listen to the screaming fan anymore. And it should still move plenty of air to keep the heatsink cool. It's actually cool to the touch right now. This is really not a hot chip. This CPU would be fine with a much thinner CPU cooler than what's on here. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't under much load, I would almost bet that for a little while at least this thing could run passively cooled. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we're getting places. 78% getting files ready. The bearings in this fan are a bit dry. You can hear it at lower RPMs. It's got a bit of a rattle. I could pull that sticker off and probably lubricate them. It feels like a bearing that's able to be serviced. So, but I don't have any 3-in-1 oil or bearing oil to put on there. So, not going to do that. I don't really care enough. This system is probably not going to stay together long enough to be of much use, especially considering it's running the onboard graphics, which are about the equivalent of a baked potato. So yeah, might make it into a server of some sort. Can use up to 4 or 5 drives altogether. Actually no, the BIOS said I can connect up to 6 drives with these 2 controllers working together. So could make a server out of it. Runs cool, doesn't use a ton of power. It's kind of a shame that the GT520 was dead though. I was kind of interested to see how well it would game. I was debating so hard on throwing my R7 370 onto this board just for entire amounts of shits and giggles and laughs. That would have just been great if throwing a 4 gig 370 onto something like this just to see what you could run, because I know there's some people out there on some seriously budget ass systems that probably still have CPUs close to this one, or maybe, you know, like a Core 2 Duo or Core 2 Quad, which actually still perform pretty well. Seeing as how this is almost a 3 GHz dual core, I would imagine it would still run some games. But wait until this gets done. I'm going to have to charge my camera battery for a bit because it just got down to the last bar and started flashing red. So when you get back, or when I get back to you, I'll probably be on Windows 10 with some stuff installed to test out. Okay, so we're getting places. It's doing the first initial boot after install. I had to do this 3 times because 3 times the hard drive was bad or close enough to being bad. I must have some bad sectors or something on a couple of the drives that I used, because it just kind of, it would either stop getting ready or getting files ready for installation on the drive, or it would slow to a crawl, like absolute crawl. The drives that I tried were the Western Digital 80 gig. That was just acting really funny. It got everything expanded, and then it kept saying disk boot failure, but the BIOS recognized it. It just refused to boot Windows. The second drive I tried was the Samsung 80 gig SpinPoint drive, and that, what was it doing? It was showing, first it was showing up as a 30 gig drive, or 32 gig drive, which isn't supposed to be happening unless I have 2 jumpers on there in a very certain specific configuration. It shows it right there. My camera's not going to focus because it's a pile. But it would only show as a 32 gig drive, and then when I swapped the jumper over to master, it didn't show up at all. It did in the BIOS. The BIOS saw the drive at boot, but Windows said there was no drives to install Windows 10 on. So I said, okay. Then I swapped to a, I don't have it out anymore, but it's a Seagate Barracuda 40 gig, 7200 RPM drive. And that one got about 73% through expanding Windows files, and started having a repetitive sound to it that made me think it was still expanding files, it was still moving, but it was going excruciatingly slowly, so I know that drive has bad sectors. Now we're on to a 40 gig 7200 RPM Slim Maxter drive, and that was the fastest out of all of them. I tell you what, man, the Maxter drives I don't have issues with. Like, I got this 40 gig Maxter here, still works perfectly. I have this Quantum Fireball 20 gig drive, still works perfectly. I have to be careful not to short these out on the motherboard. And believe it or not, the oldest Seagate drive that I have is from 1998. It's a Seagate Media List 4321. It's a 4.3 gig drive. I have no idea what RPM. I know it's slow, but it's from 1998 and the damn thing still works fine. This actually has FreeNAS 8 on it. This is one of the main boot drives for my server because it just doesn't die, so why not use it? I mean, FreeNAS only takes up a couple hundred megs, so I didn't want, that's the smallest drive I have. I used to have a Western Digital Caviar 200 meg drive laying around, but I don't remember what happened to it. But yeah, so there's the 80 gig Western Digital over there, the Maxter drive there, these 3-4 drives. There's another one up there, that's a Western Digital 40 gig, the cousin of that drive. Then this drawer down here that I can't get open with one hand because the knob's gone. One second. I almost dropped that hard drive. That would have been, well, I mean, would have been too terrible, but you know. In here, this is the Barracuda drive, 7200 RPM Seagate 40 gig that I tried before and failed. This is another Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM 40 gig drive that is dead. This one was a refurb drive that was dead out of the gate, literally. Refurb drives are shit. I don't know why anybody buys them. I got this one for free. It was brand new, ordered from eBay, and it literally failed within about 2 hours of installing Windows. It was full of bad sectors, so refurb my ass. And another Seagate Barracuda 7200 RPM drive. This one's 80 gigs, and it's actually a SATA drive. This is one of the only SATA 80 gig Barracuda drives that I have. For someone that's not a huge fan of Seagate, I sure do have a lot of their freaking drives, don't I? I mean, come on. But this one, out of a 2005 Dell, I believe, still works. It's incredibly bad sounding, incredibly noisy, I got a lot of bad sectors. The fitness level on SpeedFan is 0%, but it does still function, so I give it credit for that. There is more around here, places. I have a 160 gig Seagate Barracuda drive, or no, a 120 gig Maxtor drive in the Pentium 3 tower down here. I did have a 160 gig Seagate drive somewhere, but I'm fairly certain I gave that away. That still works. So, I love Western Digital, but all of my drives seem to suddenly be Seagates. Interesting. And somebody's unhappy, apparently. I don't know what's going on out there. Just had the Red Cross drop off water filters and a case of bottled water to my house because where I live, our city water system is pretty much breaking down. The pipes have corroded and lead is leaching into the city water, so the water is undrinkable. You're supposed to filter it out before you cook with it or drink it, and so yeah, got that going on, so that's awesome. But this is still doing things, so I'll leave it to do things, and then when I get things installed, wait, it's doing things. Alright. Customize settings. This is something nobody does. Do not send my typing data to Microsoft. Do not send typing inking data to Microsoft. Yeah, fine. And no. It's the only thing I have with Windows 10 is they blatantly say, you know, they're sending what you type. They can, I think it's like up to 500 letters or characters. What you're typing gets sent to Microsoft every now and then. I mean, if you're not doing anything wrong, that's totally fine. I'm not that worried, but a lot of people will not upgrade to Windows 10 because of this. And even if you turn it off, it still does send some things to Microsoft. Because that's how it works. There's also the get updates and send updates to other PCs. Pretty much like torrenting updates kind of thing, but I'm going to turn that off because it uses up bandwidth. Granted, I have a 126 down or 127 down and 25 up connection, so it's not a huge deal, but yeah. So this is doing things. I'll let it do things, get back to you guys when it's done doing things, and we'll go from there. This onboard's not going to run much, but maybe we'll install some of the 90s benchmarks if I can get them to run on Windows 10. You know, PC Mark 2002 and 3D Mark 2001 and a couple other things. I had pretty much all the 3D Mark benchmarks from the early 90s. So, we'll get that going. Hopefully things don't blue screen or anything. So far, for this hardware being old as fuck, this is going really well. So yeah, if you have a Foxconn board and a Pentium dual core in 1.5 gigs of RAM and an old IDE hard drive, so far it looks like it'll install. Whether or not I can get the video drivers working will be another thing, but I'll talk to you guys in a bit. Well, it's taken absolutely forever, but Windows 10 is installed and running quite well on that. So, thoughts. Can you run Windows 10 on a Pentium dual core and 1.5 gigs of RAM? Yes. Should you? No. Because it's using 1 gig out of the 1.5 gigs, doing absolutely nothing right now. So it starts to really slam the page file when you start opening up web pages and whatnot. I mean, it will do it. Opening things up. It actually detected the video drivers and everything right away. I didn't think it would support them, but it got everything besides one thing. It installed an infrared port driver that apparently this motherboard has infrared capability. I see nothing for an infrared port receiver, so it has to be one of these down here, but who knows. But let's see here. Since I have the speakers hooked up, let's go to YouTube. I only have about 8 more minutes left on the camera for the memory card. Sign in. Default web browser, Firefox. Point the camera away real quick. You can just look at that thing. Honestly though, if I give this thing a RAM upgrade, it wouldn't be too bad. Is that loaded yet? Yep, alright. So, we're on YouTube now. Got a YouTube comment to look at. I gotta re-enable. I set Windows to performance mode. Or I set the system to do what's best for performance, and it made the text look ugly as hell. So, gotta fix that. Advanced system settings. That's not what I wanted to do. I don't believe. But yeah, this thing might be doing updates or something, but as you can see, it's not the fastest of things. Greenham Gaming has a new video 3 hours ago, and it already has 5,400 views. I wish I was that popular. So that should have switched over. Still looks kind of crappy, but I guess it's coming back. There it goes. So a video. Let's try playing this video. So this is playing at 720p, and it is struggling. It's doing quite well considering that it's probably out of memory.
Additionally, I thought this would be a great opportunity to discuss which parts of an old pre-built system are still usable when building out.
Let's see what the CPU usage is.
Component in a computer gets outdated at the same rate, and knowing which parts to carry over.
So it's using 90% of the CPU, pretty much 89 to 90% to play 720p YouTube video. Not the strongest processor in the world.
Will heavily factor into the reusability of your old hardware. So here's our first look at my dad's A6700 wide HP Pavilion.
See if we can. How well it plays 480p. It could just need more up-to-date video drivers. It's running the ones that Microsoft Update grabs. I haven't done anything to the system, so no updates, no nothing like that. But it works. Runs Windows 10. You could run Windows 10 fully activated and give it more RAM. But I'll make an update video on this thing later. I should probably conclude the video now, considering I made this multiple parts that have been quite a few minutes long, so it's probably going to be like a 30 or 45 minute video. So if you liked the video, hit that like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. If you want more videos like this, let me know and I can do my best. I got more videos coming up. There'll be some overclocking tutorials that some people need. So let me know what you think, and I will talk to you guys later. So I just wanted to add one more quick thing to this video before I start doing what's going to be in some of the next videos. I'm actually going to roll this back to Windows XP because honestly, with the amount of RAM that it has, XP is pretty much the best option, and it's not like it's a gaming machine. This thing was pretty much built for Windows XP kind of hardware, so that's what's going back on it. I can just install the patches that allow the POS ready 2009 version of XP updates to continue So it'll get updates until about 2019 for security and whatnot. So yeah, that's the plan, because it's just not enough RAM to do much on. It really struggles. But if you're wondering, there's the temperatures that my camera's not going to focus on. But we're looking at 34 degrees on one core and 37 on the other, and everything else is quite good on the motherboard. And that old freaking Maxter drive that's about 12 years old now, that's the fitness and performance level of the drive. Everything is within spec still. So yeah, just goes to show how reliable some of the Maxter drives are. I mean, I've literally like just chucked that drive around. It's been dancing around my room for about a year, and it was in a bag of I threw it into a garbage bag full of hard drives, and it's got no bad sectors. It's a perfectly healthy drive for the most part. So yep. But anyway guys, I will talk to you later. See ya.